Alright, you guys read the title of the video. Before we get started, hit that like button if you enjoyed, as it really does help out the channel. And of course, subscribe if you guys are new and you guys enjoy this type of content, so you don't miss out on any new videos like this. Plus, I'm trying to hit 1,000 subscribers, and once I reach my goal, I am finally gonna do a face reveal. But with that being said, let's go ahead and get this video started. Alright, coming in at number 10, I got Mike Gesicki of the Miami Dolphins. Mike is a matchup nightmare. He's 6'6" and 250 pounds. However, he actually has some pretty good speed for someone his size. I mean, the guy's like a massive slot receiver. And I mean, the Dolphins, they do line him up in the slot quite a bit. Not to mention, Mike Gesicki, despite the fact that over the past few years his quarterback play hasn't been phenomenal, he's still produced at a pretty decent level. Now that being said, I do think Mike Gesicki is a little bit of a one-trick pony. Like, even though he is a good receiving tight end, he's really not that good of a separator. Not to mention, the guy cannot block for shit. However, that being said, he's still a very good tight end. And last year, he had 780 receiving yards and 2 receiving touchdowns. And hey, if Tua does break out the way that Dolphins fans, hope he can, Mike Gesicki could be in for a career season. Alright, coming in at number 9, we have Hunter Henry of the New England Patriots. Now, I might be kind of biased as a Patriots fan, but I do firmly believe Hunter Henry is a top 10 tight end, and he is coming off a career season. The guy is not exactly an elite tight end, but he is pretty good, as he can block. He's also pretty good as a receiver, and he's also a good red zone threat, so he can do anything you want from a tight end. I mean, my main concern with him is the fact that, he is kind of injury prone, and you always have that fear that any moment that he could go down. But, Hunter Henry, despite the fact that he can be kind of injury prone, and he's not exactly an elite tight end, he's still pretty good, and I do think number 9, it's a good spot for him. And last year, he had 603 receiving yards and 9 receiving touchdowns. At number 8, we have TJ Hockenson of the Detroit Lions. Now, TJ Hockenson no doubt has his issues, and I gotta say, he has been, kind of disappointing relative to his expectations coming out of Iowa. Now, he's still a good player, obviously, but no player is perfect, as TJ Hockenson, his blocking, it's fine, but not exactly amazing. He is injury prone for sure, and along with that, he's not much of a yak guy. But that being said, TJ Hockenson is still a very good player. He is a good receiving tight end, his blocking is still fine, and despite the fact that his quarterback play last year was not phenomenal, he still produced. And last year, he had 583 receiving yards and 4 receiving touchdowns, and he did all of that in just 12 games. So if he did play in all 17 games, his numbers, they would have been much better. At number 7, we have Dalton Schultz of the Dallas Cowboys. Now, Dalton Schultz is one of the most underrated players in the entire NFL, and I like the guy a lot. The guy is a phenomenal blocker, while also being a pretty good receiver, as last year, he had 808 receiving yards and 8 receiving touchdowns. And Dalton Schultz next year, there is a chance that he's even better, as the Cowboys, they will be without Michael Gallup, most likely for the first few weeks, and they just lost Amari Cooper, so Dalton Schultz could be a massive focal point of this offense next year. At number 6, I have Dallas Goedert of the Philadelphia Eagles. Dallas Goedert I like a lot. He is one of my favorite tight ends in the entire NFL, and I gotta say, he is somewhat overlooked. A lot of people at the Eagles are hyping up A.J. Brown, Jalen Hurts, Devonta Smith, and don't get me wrong, I get the hype. But Dallas Goedert, I gotta say, sometimes it feels like, he's just not talked about, even though he should. As the guy, he's one of the best blocking tight ends in the entire NFL, and last year, he had a career season as a receiving tight end, as he had 830 receiving yards and 4 receiving touchdowns. At number 5, I have Kyle Pitts of the Atlanta Falcons. Kyle Pitts is a freak of nature athlete, as he is a matchup nightmare. He's 6'6", 245 pounds, but he's as fast as a lot of wide receivers in the entire NFL. Now, that being said, he has his flaws, he's not much of a red zone threat, not to mention, like a lot of these freak of nature, matchup nightmare tight ends, he's not a good blocker. But that being said, Kyle Pitts is still a very good player, and next year, I got a feeling that he could go off, Now, I will say, quarterback situation for him, not exactly phenomenal, but that being said, Kyle Pitts is such a good player that I wouldn't be surprised if he produced with that, despite the fact that his quarterback situation isn't phenomenal. And last year, he had 1,026 receiving yards and 1 receiving touchdown. Now at number 4, I have Darren Waller of the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, Waller had a bit of a down season because he struggled with some injuries, but that being said, when Darren Waller is healthy, we know that he is a monster on the field. The guy is incredibly hard to cover, and again, I know I've used the word a few times, or the term a few times in this video, but the guy is definitely, a matchup nightmare, and definitely a freak athlete. I mean, he's 6'6", 255, and I mean, he's very fast. I mean, he's as fast as most wide receivers out there. I mean, I do believe that he used to play wide receiver, and unlike some of these, other, like, matchup nightmare tight ends I've mentioned, Darren Waller's blocking, it's not going to blow you away, but his blocking is actually, quite solid. And last year, he had 665 receiving yards and 2 receiving touchdowns, and he did all of that in just 11 games. And next year, assuming he's healthy, I do think he will get his stats back up and he will be good again. I could see his stats taking a slight hit because, Devontae Adams is there, so that will take targets away from him. But that being said, he's so good, and I mean, Derek Carr loves working with tight ends, so he's still going to get his own. At number 3, I have George Kittle of the San Francisco 49ers. Now, George Kittle at number 3 might be kind of shocking to some people, but he did miss a few games this past year, and Mark Andrews was so good this past year, so I mean, I guess spoiler alert, I do have Mark Andrews above George Kittle. And George Kittle, even though he does have health issues, when healthy, we know how good of a player he is. I mean, the guy is a phenomenal receiver, and he is a super good yak guy. He's also the best blocking tight end in the entire NFL. And I mean, I really do want to put him at number 1 again, because, after the 2019 season, I did think he was the best tight end in the NFL. But again, he does need to, be on the field more. But I mean, next year, if he's amazing and he plays in all 17 games and he's arguably the best tight end in the NFL, I wouldn't be surprised if I put George Kittle at number 1. And last year, he had 910 receiving yards, 6 receiving touchdowns, and he did that in 14 games. At number 2, I have Mark Andrews of the Baltimore Ravens. Now, I kind of did spoil this one in the previous segment about George Kittle, but yeah, I got Mark Andrews right here at number 2. I mean, if we do strictly base this off the 2021 NFL season, Mark Andrews, I mean, he would probably be number 1, he was probably the best tight end in the entire NFL, strictly based off the 2021 season. Now, his blocking, again, it's just fine. However, his receiving ability is phenomenal. The guy, I mean, he's really good at picking up yards, and along with that, he is pretty good in the red zone. And in fact, he did lead all tight ends in receiving yards, this past year. And if I'm not mistaken, I do believe that he came close, or he broke the record for most receiving yards in a season by a tight end. And Mark Andrews, he didn't play with Lamar Jackson all season long, as I do believe that Lamar Jackson missed like 5 games, and despite the fact that he did miss 5 games, Mark Andrews, he still produced without Lamar Jackson, as last year he had 1,361 receiving yards and 9 receiving touchdowns. At number 1, you guessed it, it's Travis Kelce of the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, Travis Kelce has just been consistently elite over the past few years. I mean, he's maybe the best receiving tight end in the entire NFL. Such a good route runner, and just overall a dominant, just a great receiving tight end. His blocking, it's fine. He's not like George Kittle as a blocker, but that being said, his dominance as a receiver I mean, it's the big reason why he's at number 1. And again, his consistency, and I mean, he's also healthy. Like, again, I mentioned, like, if George Kittle played all 17 games, I might have actually put him at number 1. But yeah, Travis Kelce, I mean, I think we all know about his greatness. And last year, he had 1,125 receiving yards and 9 receiving touchdowns. But with that being said, that'll do it for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. It really does mean a lot to me. Again, like, subscribe, do all of that stuff, and check me out on social media. Links to my social media, they are in the description below. And I did revive my podcast, so, I mean, if you guys, forgot about that, so go ahead and check out my podcast. Link to that, that's also in the description below. But without further ado, I'm out, you guys.